Welcome to our 7th episode of the San Antonio Instructional Influencer Series. The idea for the Instructional Influencer Series was born out of a desire to connect with other educators during a time in which we are all facing unprecedented challenges. Each episode is structured as a conversation, allowing us to ask questions that we all may have and share some approaches taken to solve some common educational issues. The conversation will last approximately 45 minutes, but we encourage you to add your thoughts, your comments, and questions to the chat. At the end of the episode, if there's anything we haven't addressed, we will circle back and respond to those contributions. Today's episode is Beyond the Books, The Secret Lives of Librarians. Today's host is Veronica Hellamns, our Director for Elementary Reading Language Arts. Veronica has 18 years of experience in education as a kindergarten, first grade, and fourth grade teacher. She's also been a district level instructional specialist for about 5 years, and she's an Army veteran. Welcome, Veronica. We're excited. Today's guest is Dr. Janie Flores.
Thank you, Kendra.
You're welcome. Today's guest is Dr. Janie Flores. Dr. Flores has 25 years in education as a middle school math teacher, a science and a math specialist, and a librarian at all levels. So once again, we have an exciting lineup of women for our last episode of Women's History Month, and we are thrilled to learn from you both.
Dr. Flores, it seems like you passed through theater. We talked about your first major being in theater, the math classroom, the science classroom, before landing in the library and collecting your $200. So tell us why you decided to be a librarian.
I knew I wanted to get my master's degree in something. I love teaching, and I always wanted to help kids and help teachers. I was a mentor teacher. And when I started looking at all the master's programs, the librarian was a position that was able to help everybody in the whole school. I wanted to be able to help every student and every teacher, and that's what I saw the librarian as being. The librarian has the biggest classroom in the entire campus, and so that's what I wanted. That's why I decided to go into being a librarian.
Awesome, thank you. And that's really unique in thinking of the library as a classroom, right? And the biggest classroom in the campus. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, so to start out, I wanted us to start a little differently today and think about 2 truths and a librarian. Get it? Okay, so you'll give us 2 truths and a lie. And then our audience, we're going to try to determine which of your statements is a lie. Okay.
Okay. All right. And if you are participating and you're a librarian, you're not allowed to play, because you'll know which one the lie is. All right. Okay. So number 1, in SAISD, you have to have 2 years of teaching experience before you can be hired as a librarian. Number 2, you need a master's degree in something plus your librarian certification to be a librarian in SAISD. 3, librarians want to do morning duty and after school duty every day of the school year.
Okay, in the chat, which one of those statements do you believe to be the lie?
You ready for the truth?
Yes.
Okay, the truth is that librarians do want to do morning and afternoon duty every day of the school year in the library. We need to have our libraries open in the mornings before school, so students can come into the library and have access to the library before school even starts, and have the library open after school so that kids can have access to the library then. Ideally, according to the American Association of School Libraries, our libraries are supposed to be open the entire school day, and students are supposed to be able to have access to that. And if librarians could have a morning duty and after school duty in the library, we would do that every single day so that our students have access. The lie is that you can have a master's degree in anything and your certification, your librarian certification to be a librarian in SAISD. That's the lie. You need to have a master's degree in library science and your school librarian certification.
Awesome. Thanks for that. And thank you all for participating. So what I hear you saying, Dr. Flores, is to be a librarian, you have to be highly specialized.
That's true. Just like administrators have their master's degree in administration, school leadership, librarians are no different. They have their master's degree in library science, and they get special training specifically for school libraries.
Okay, and so besides that one little untruth, what are some other fallacies that people may believe to be true about what librarians do? And why do you believe that people think these things?
Oh, I think that people have this idea of what a librarian does because of a lot of what they see in media and because of the past. So I don't shush my students, and the library is no longer this quiet, sterile place. It's a space that encourages collaboration and activities. And when you walk into a library, you're greeted and you are made to feel welcome, and you're encouraged to talk to other students and to sit at a table and work on things together. And so the biggest misconception, I think, is that all librarians are shushers, and we are not shushers. We encourage discussion and collaboration. Another huge misconception is that librarians check in and out books, and that's probably the furthest thing from the truth. We even have stations set up for students to check in and out their own books. Librarians actually should be considered instructional partners, where they are collaborating with teachers and coming up with lessons and ways to help students be their best self, be the best learner, and learn as much as they can. That's the actual role of the librarian.
Thank you. So that leads to my next question for you. So the late great Dr. Maya Angelou once said, "There's no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside of you." What untold story do you want to share about the role of librarians? And what is something that you wish everyone knew about their role?
Well, that's a good question. The untold story is that we want to have our libraries filled with students, and we want to work with teachers. We want to increase that rigor, and we want to challenge students. We do a lot of stuff in the background, and I think that that's why a lot of people don't realize all that librarians do. We're readers, but we're also writers. We're event planners. We are performers. We're tech savvy. We also act as liaisons between the community and the library and the school, between teachers in different content areas. We're detectives. You give us a question, we're going to do what we can to find the answer, and we're huge community builders. So I think that's the best way to put it.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. And so in thinking of the many hats that librarians wear, how has the role of the librarian evolved since you started, and specifically through the pandemic?
Oh gosh, the pandemic put a huge spin on things. We were already moving into technology, where before it was, books and reading materials, research, and it's still very, very much into research, but now we've moved into digital literacy, digital citizenship, information literacy. We in the library, we really have moved into hitting all of those different kinds of literacies. The pandemic kind of put a little twist on it, and now we have focused a lot on technology. Because everybody had to do that immediate switch, we became the help desk for each campus. And now that we want to move back to the normal, I think we can let some of that go. We can let that go and show teachers how to be that troubleshooting person so that students don't have to miss that instructional time between moving from the traveling to the library and getting help in the library and then going back to the classroom. I would love to see us doing a professional development for teachers to how to fix those issues when you come across them. So even though it put a little twist on things, I think it gave us a huge opportunity to show students even more about technology.
Thank you. So it seems like librarians are uniquely situated to have a far-reaching impact on not only the reading culture, but the overall culture of the school. So with this in mind, how does equity, diversity, and inclusion factor into the role of the librarian?
I think libraries in general are the backbone of democracy because our services are available to everyone. It doesn't matter what your background is, your education level, your finances. Everything that we offer to our students and to our community is free. So that's a huge equity builder. You come in and it doesn't matter what you look like or how you're dressed, you're going to be treated with as much respect as the next person is. So the role of libraries in that essence has not changed. We are the great equalizer because no one has more advantages over another person in a library. When we build our collections, when we build those resources that are available to students, we make sure that our materials reflect who our population is. We get to know our students, we get to know our teachers, we know what they're interested in, we know what they like. And so we make sure that who they are is reflected on our shelves. And so when they pick up a book, we want them to see themselves in that book because then they're even more engaged in what they're reading. So diversity is a huge part of libraries.
Thank you. So when I think about librarians and their unique positions in the school, right, it's almost like they're the aunties and the uncles in the sense that they get an opportunity to watch you grow up and you come and go, but you don't necessarily stay there, right? So let's talk about the opportunities that librarians have to build relationships across a span of years.
You know, when I was going through my doctoral program, I was really interested in school connectedness and what connects that student, what makes that student feel like they're part of the school. And the research that I came across talked about how the counselors are in that unique position where they get to see the kids through every year they go through a school, whether it's 5 years at an elementary school, 3 years at a middle school, or 4 years at a high school. They're the ones that see them every day, all through those years. The same thing goes for our custodians and even our cafeteria workers. They get to see those students, but the research didn't mention the librarian. And the librarian is also in that position where they get to be with that student throughout their entire years in elementary school. They see them when they're in pre-K and they see them when they leave in 5th grade. You get to know that student as if they were your own, like an auntie or an uncle. And I think that part is left out where the students are really connected to their libraries. They love the libraries, they love being in there. They know that when they walk into that library, it's a welcoming place and they're accepted no matter who they are. They may not be a star quarterback or one of the popular kids that, you know, is in student council. They may not be part of any other group, but they always have a place in the library. And they feel that when they walk in. And that's what our librarians try to make their libraries feel when they come in. So the librarian also gets to know that student throughout that whole process of going through elementary, middle school, and high school.
Thank you. And so in thinking about how the librarians have an opportunity to really get to know the students and watch them learn and grow over time, they also have the unique opportunity in really watching that student grow and develop as a reader. So beyond the books and beyond the research projects, what are some other ways that we can partner with librarians to increase the academic achievement for all students?
I just recently had a conversation with a librarian at Whittier Middle School. Her name is Valeria Perez, and she worked with one of her reading language arts teachers, Mr. Boyd. Mr. Boyd and Ms. Perez were interested in increasing the Lexile scores for his students. And so they collaborated and came up with a plan. And they executed this plan throughout a few months of this year. And what happened at the end, what they implemented was having students get one book on their Lexile level and then one book that they wanted, because research has also shown that when you read for pleasure, it has a huge impact in your learning. So they had two books. And they each had bookmarks, and on their bookmark, the students had their Lexile level printed on that. So they knew what level they were reading on. When they advanced a little bit higher, that score was changed. And so they could visually see the increase in their own Lexile level. By the time they took the MAP test in the middle of the year, some of those students had grown 25% just by having that collaboration and that plan in place where the librarian was able to step in and help that teacher.
Awesome. So in thinking about the opportunity to maybe reimagine the roles of librarians in schools and how our librarians are being used on our campuses, what suggestions would you make to not only campus administration, but teachers and campus staff as regarding to next steps to reimagine the role of the librarian?
I would love to see the librarian be part of planning time with their teachers. I think if they are part of that conversation, they know all of the resources that we have available at the teacher's fingertips. And so more of our resources will be used rather than sit in the cloud and not be used. If they're part of those PLNs with the teachers, when the teachers are having those discussions about what they want for their students and what challenges they're coming up to, the librarian is there to help brainstorm ideas and to be that partner. I know we have instructional coaches. I would love to see the librarian be considered an instructional partner. They can, they should be meeting regularly with their principals and talking about what they're doing to help teachers, what they can do to help teachers. If we know what's going on in the classroom, then we can support that. When your students come in and we know, oh, you're in Mr. Boyd's class, you're covering this topic. You know what, I think you will benefit from looking at this. Or, oh, let me show you this article in this magazine that we have. When I was growing up, we had commercials that were titled "The More You Know," and that's kind of stuck with me. So the more we know about what's going on in the classroom, the better we can help students and support our teachers.
Thank you. And so this conversation makes me think about one of our past episodes, and we were discussing cross-content literacies, right? And our math friends, they kept mentioning reasonableness. And so when we think about the role of the librarian, what are some things that are reasonable for us to expect with regards to ways that librarians can partner with us in the in our literacy communities?
It's reasonable to plan together. Like I said, we would love to be part of that discussion, the planning part. I think that what our resources, many of our resources need to be used more. And if we're in those conversations, we can show the teachers what they have access to. We have access to not only databases, but all kinds of reading programs, and we're increasing our digital collections that will really meet the needs of the students and the interests of the students.
Okay, so I see some great comments in the chat about librarians and their many roles, and one of them being math and science teachers and wanting to partner across all disciplines. I wonder if we can talk more about that, the librarian as a partner across all disciplines.
When I was at Harris, I often partnered with one of our social studies teachers, Mrs. Whitecotton, and she does a huge unit on the Holocaust. And I am able to already pull those resources for her because I know it's coming up. And she takes those resources with her to her room. So her students already have that at their fingertips. I was able to order more material for her, specifically for her needs. She was asking for a particular title, and I approached our principal and said, you know, Ms. Whitecotton would like a class set of these books to help with this Holocaust project, and I got a quote for you, or are you able to purchase these for classroom use? And she was, you know, without having that conversation, that partnership with the teacher, she would not have known that she could ask me for a quote for those books. She would not have known that she could approach the principal and say, hey, this resource is one that would certainly benefit all of the students if we had this class set to implement. I partnered with another social studies teacher on a huge project where it was a government project that he was working on, and they had to learn about the birth of the United States. And so what I did on my part was I asked them to choose another country that was in the UN, and they had to research that country and find out what the birth of that country was. And then they had to compare the birth of this nation with the birth of the United States and find where the similarities and differences were. What I did to help was I graded all of the resource lists to make sure they were citing their resources correctly. And the teacher graded all of the other parts of the project. So it wasn't as overwhelming to the teacher doing this entire project on their own. So I stepped in to help with that, with the instruction and with the grading.
Awesome. So it looks like librarians and the library is really, and it can really be an extension of the classroom, right? If we give it the opportunity to be that extension of the classroom. So I think it's pretty safe to say that librarians are change agents, or they have the opportunity to be huge change agents on our campuses. So I want to just give you some time to really just give some shout outs and to spotlight librarians that have been change agents around the district. And we have a lot of them on the line with us. So maybe if we have anyone who wants to give a shout out to another colleague, then we can do that as well. So librarians as change agents, can we talk about that?
Yeah, so I have a list of, I have another 2 truths and a lie, because I thought about that yesterday. I have 3 famous people who were librarians, two people who were librarians, and 1 person who was not a librarian, who were also change agents in their industry. So I'd like you to pick out who was not the librarian. Okay, so the first person is Benjamin Franklin. The second person is J. Edgar Hoover. And the third person is Alfred Hitchcock. Which one of those people was not a librarian? Benjamin Franklin, J. Edgar Hoover, and Alfred Hitchcock. I see a lot of Hoovers, 1 Hitchcock, Hoover, Hitchcock. Hitchcock, he was a weird librarian. You say weird, I say unique, eccentric. Okay, so the one who was not a librarian was Alfred Hitchcock. Benjamin Franklin was a librarian, and J. Edgar Hoover was a librarian. And those two people encompass the huge changes that librarians have impact on, can impact. When libraries first started, there's a children's book, and the name of the book escapes me. It's about a librarian who rode horseback across country to deliver books to the community. That's how it kind of all started. Libraries are on the cusp of change all the time. That's part of our training, that we embrace change. We embrace it so that we can show people what the changes that are coming and how to handle those changes, especially in schools. We're partners with technology, and we learn how to use these resources so that we can teach teachers how to use those resources. So when you are right, Veronica, librarians are change agents, and I think we are that because we embrace it, and it's just part of the culture of being librarians, is that, you know, we see change coming and we get ready for it. We invite it in, and we share it.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for that energy. And I look forward to all of the many ways that we can really work on partnering and seeing our librarians as true instructional partners. So lastly, as we begin to wrap things up, could you just please share with us some of your long-term goals that you have for the district as a library coordinator?
Ooh, my long-term goals, I would love to see a librarian at every campus. And I know that's tough because of our enrollment numbers. So that's a huge obstacle. We don't have, our population isn't as large as it is at other districts for each campus. And so it's very difficult to do that. I think a better goal for us as a district is to make sure that the librarians are included in PLNs and in planning. That would be huge. I would love to see librarians be used for morning duty, to have students to come in, to have the library open during lunches and have students come in during lunch to check out books or to get work done. I think it's also a way to minimize the crowds in the mornings and at lunches and after schools. I think if we did that, our students would be just loving the library, because there's so much that goes on there. It's not just about books anymore. It's about community. It's the hub of the school. And if you want a question answered, you go to the library. And that's just the culture of thinking. I would love to see that change. That the librarians are teachers. It's funny that we have so many applicants for librarian positions because we have several openings. But more than 75% of those applicants aren't qualified. I don't know if they don't read the qualifications before they submit their applications, but it's strange. I want to completely change the idea of what a librarian is. I don't want anybody to think that librarians are old and have buns and glasses and shush. That would be my biggest goal, is to change that idea of what a librarian looks like and what they do.
Thank you so much. So when I think about the task ahead of us in education, I'm reminded that it takes a village. And so I want to thank you for sharing with us and reminding us that librarians are an integral part of our village, right? And we need to really have all hands on deck and tap into all that we have, all of the opportunities that we have to partner with our amazing librarians out on campuses so that we can be the best that we could be every day for our students. I want to thank you, Dr. Flores, for joining us, and to all of the awesome librarians on the call. Thank you, thank you, thank you for everything you do every day for our staff and for our scholars. And I'll turn it over to you, Janet.
Yes, and we also wanted to mention that this is the highest turnout we've had for our instructional influencer episode, which I think just captures the power of librarians and all of our eagerness to start collaborating in new ways. And I loved, Dr. Flores, what you said about librarians being on the cusp of change. Boy, howdy. Teach us your ways, because we are also on the cusp of change. So thank you so much for that.